What's up, YouTube friends? So the things you're going to need to make this coin purse are: you need a piece of fabric for your main body piece. This measures 5 inches by 8 inches. And you're also going to need a piece of fabric of the same. It could be different if you wanted to. But this measures 2 inches by 4 inches, and this is going to be our little loop. You're going to need a lining piece that measures 5 inches by 8 inches. And you're also going to need an 8-inch zipper. It can be longer if that's what you have. But 8 is a pretty good size to work with. I wouldn't go any smaller than that. You're going to need a key ring, and optional, I'm going to add one of these little clips because I have a bunch of them. Some optional tools I'll be using are my bone folder and my pinking shears. You'll need your sewing machine with matching thread. I'll be using cream today, and an iron and ironing board. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my lining piece, and I'm going to have it facing up. Today I'll be using this gray color, and there's really not a right or wrong side, but you just want to make sure that it's facing up if it has a print. Then I'm going to take my zipper. I'm going to line up the top of my zipper with the edge of my lining. And I want my pull over here on the top and on the right. Next, I'm going to take my outside fabric and I'm going to lay that with the right side facing down. And this was actually a print I got in my recent box of fabric from a subscriber, so thank you again. So I'm just going to lay that with the right side facing down. I'm going to line up my top edge, and then you can either stick a pin or a clip. Now, if I didn't mention this before, you are going to need a zipper foot with your sewing machine. So next I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and with my zipper foot, I'm going to sew all the way down. And at this point, you do not have to backstitch at the beginning or the end, but you could if you wanted to. So I'm just going to change my presser foot to my zipper foot, and that's really easy. There's just a little lever right in the back. And then I'm just going to stick it right on underneath. So you can see that I have it on the left side of my foot. So now I'm just going to line up this edge of my zipper foot right along here, the edge of my zipper. And like I said, you do not have to backstitch at this point, but you can if you want to. Oh, make sure you remove your pin. Alright guys, so it should look like this. So now I'm just going to fold over both of my fabrics, so my lining one first, and then just give it a finger press. And I'm going to do the same thing with the outside fabric, and then just give it a finger press. And now I'm just going to take this over to my iron and just iron this little seam. Now for this project, one of these little irons works perfectly to get right up along there. But I'm just going to use my household iron because that's normally what people have. Now I'm just going to take this back over to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to top stitch right down the side of my zipper. So I'm just going to keep my foot where it's at, and I'm just going to catch the edge of my fabric, and that's just going to keep it from getting caught in our zipper. So I'm going to line up this edge right along the edge of my zipper. And there's no need to backstitch. So now I'm going to do the same thing, but to the other side. So I'm going to take my top fabric, and I'm going to line up the bottom edge with the edge of the zipper that we haven't sewn on yet. And then you could just put a temporary pin. I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing with my lining. So I'm just going to remove that temporary pin and then pin all 3 layers together. So now we just need to take this over to our sewing machine and sew our seam right here. All right, so this is just like before. So I'm going to start a little bit past my fabric. And the edge of my zipper foot is running up along the edge of the zipper. I'm actually going to remove my pen now because it's kind of in my way. And just keep sewing. Alright, so you should have a weird looking thing that looks like this. So now I'm just going to open up my zipper. So now we're just going to press this nice and flat before we top stitch it. Alright guys, so my only advice for this part is you want to start at the opposite end of your zipper pull. It's the easiest. And just like before, I'm going to line up this edge with the edge of my zipper this time. Now right around here, it's going to be a little problem area, but it's not too difficult. You just want to make sure that everything is laying nice and flat. And that your lining or any other fabric isn't tucked up around that area. I'm going to set this off to the side for just 1 minute, and then you're going to want to grab your little strip piece. So first, with the right side facing down, I'm going to fold it in half the long way. And give it a press. I'm going to open it back up, and then I'm just going to fold in the raw edges to that crease. So one side and then do the other. And then finally I'm just going to fold it in half on our original fold and give it a press. So it should look like that. So now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine and I'm going to sew with the 1/8 inch seam allowance down both of the long sides. And you can backstitch at the end in the beginning if you would like. Alright, so now I'm just going to take off my zipper foot. I'm going to put on my regular foot. And I'm going to sew with the 1/8 inch seam allowance and I'm just going to eyeball it. And like I said, you can backstitch at the beginning and the end if you want, but it's not really necessary. And I'm going to do that to both sides. Alright, so for this next step, it might be a little confusing, but I'm going to zip this all the way up. So now I'm going to line up my coin purse on my grid, and I want the middle of my zipper to be 1.5 inches down from the top. And mine's actually pretty good right here. Next, you want to take your loop. I'm going to fold it in half. And then on the end where our pull tab is, I'm going to insert it in there. Just like that. There's going to be quite a bit sticking out. It's just a lot easier to handle this and iron this when it's a little bigger piece of fabric. But I stuck it in there about 3/4 of an inch. So here's the end of my fabric. Right here is the end of my loop. So now I'm just going to stick a pin in it. And I'm also going to stick a pin right here at the top of my zipper. And I'm going through all the layers. Next, I'm going to go and I'm going to open up my zipper about halfway through. I'm going to line up my zipper the best I can and then stick another pin at the bottom of the zipper. So just like that. Now I'm going to take this over to my sewing machine, and with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, this time I am going to backstitch at the beginning. I'm going to sew all the way down and backstitch at the end. And I'm going to do that on both of your sides. Now you really need to make sure that your zipper pull is in the middle and not somewhere over here. That's going to get cut off. Alright, so this time I will backstitch. And I'll be using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to backstitch at the end. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and I recommend putting that loop at the bottom. And as you saw, I went over the loop about 2 times just to make sure it's nice and secure. After that, I'm going to take my pinking shears and I'm just going to pink the edges. Now this is optional, you do not need to pink them. But I just think it gives a nice pretty look. If you don't have pinking shears, you just want to trim your edges up nicely. Trim up your zippers flush, and you want to leave about 1/8 to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So now I'm just going to open up my little coin purse all the way and then turn it right side out. Now with a bone folder, I'm going to carefully poke out my corners. I'm going to close my zipper, and then I'm going to give this a nice press. And I like to press it from the back. So when it's nice and pressed flat, I'm going to take this back over to my sewing machine, and I'm going to top stitch with an 1/8 inch seam allowance all the way around, back stitching at the beginning and the end, and I like to just start here at the bottom. Alright guys, so this time I'm going to use an 1/8 inch seam allowance. So I'm just going to line up the edge of my project with the edge of my presser foot, and I'm going to move my needle over to the right. I'm going to backstitch in the beginning and just keep sewing. When I get to a corner 1/8 inch away, I'm going to stop with my needle down, raise my presser foot and spin, and sew. Alright guys, so now I'm coming up to my zipper pull, so I'm actually going to open that just so it's not in my way. Make sure this is laying nice and flat. And sew. So finally you just need to add your key ring, and if you're going to use one, your little clasp. Now I'm a nervous Nelly and I always bite my nails, so this is kind of hard for me. And just like that, your little coin purse is done. Now this is definitely big enough to hold all your gold pieces, but it's also big enough to hold your ID, a credit card, some cash, and your keys. And you're ready for a night out in the town. But please drink responsibly. Now I'm going to whip up a few more of these, and I think I'm going to put the gold chocolate pieces in here and give them away as little gifts to my favorite little leprechauns. Now of course this doesn't just have to be for St. Patty's Day. Here's another one that I did in orange, and I actually really love it. Well, I hope you give this video a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit that big red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. If you'd like to support this channel and see what I'm making, head on over to my Etsy store. I have it linked down below, where I just put up a few Scrappy Patch 20-ounce tumblers. They're all handmade and one of a kind. I also have my social media links down below if you'd like to follow me over there. And as always, thanks for watching. Have a safe and happy St. Patrick's Day, and I'll see you next time.